So sometimes we talk, or not sometimes, all the time we talk about pursuing people.
Yeah.
We meet people and we're fighting for them
Yeah.
uh, to get to a place where we're feeding them and we're sharing the word with them and we're growing together.
Yeah.
But what would you say is like why is it so important to fight for people and what does that look like?
Yeah. So when we're talking about fighting for, that's on some ways this is where we find the most novelty to what is common in the church world with discipleship. We all understand that we have to find somebody to make them a disciple of Christ, and there is the whole feeding process that seems most natural. But that fighting for concept, I remember a friend of mine who started doing Chi Alpha, and from a very substantial, very significant and influential church. And I asked him, like, what was the difference that you experienced with how we are approaching discipleship versus what he kind of understood coming into Chi Alpha. And he said that was the thing that was most profound to him. In fact, in many ways, just totally changed his whole ministry understanding and faith journey with Jesus, was the idea that you could empower people to really sacrifice for the people that weren't necessarily in the walls of the church, or if they came to visit, like you could pursue them outside of those. But that idea of ministering to people relationally, outside of necessarily all of our structures or rhythms or happenings. And so when we talk about fighting for someone, what we're saying is broadly two concepts kind of fall into fighting for. There is invitation, right? And we get that. That's most natural to us. And while that's deeply important, it is also the area that we often overemphasize in Christianity sometimes, because it's the most comfortable for us. It's the area that we like the most. My world where I'm safe, I'm comfortable, where I'm secure in this community, and I'm inviting you to not be secure, not to be safe, to take the risk, to be part of my group. So the other area that's so important in this is what we just say is the pursuit, and pursuing people in their world with all that means. And the thing, though, within this that I think we often find where small group leaders, especially young small group leaders, kind of stumble in that building of that kind of a relationship with people, is they'll get a bunch of connections with people. They'll start to pursue them a little bit. They'll do a little invitations, come to my like large group events, come to my activity this weekend, come to that stuff. And they'll pursue them up until that point that somebody starts to respond to their invitations. And it's like it's so natural to, like, the moment that they start responding to that invitation, they say, okay, I've got this guy. I'm going to go back to what's comfortable, right? I'm going to just continue to invite them into my world, and then I'm going to pursue the ones I don't have. And what we have found is that is where so many times small group leaders really kind of short circuit their whole approach, because what they need to do is they need to actually pursue more, not less, but more, the ones that respond to that early season of pursuing and inviting. And typically, in the first 2 weeks of a connection, we're saying you've got to pursue them, you've got to invite them, and those who then, after that short initial season, respond, you need to pursue more. And so don't leave them to, like, hey, they'll come to my meeting, come to my thing, I can connect with them there. But if you have that initial step, you need to invest, kind of double down in that relationship and really make them your friend.
I feel like I feel like we have the tendency to want it to be fair, like equal time with each person, or the people that we're having a harder time with, we want to invest more in.
Yeah.
But I feel like it seems like Jesus took these three guys, like Peter, James, and John, and spent more time with them. Do you think that is like part of
Right.
this?
Yeah. That's certainly where we would see that principle lived out in Jesus's life, that the closer he gets to the cross, the more it seems like he spends time and energy with the guys that he already has. The crowds are walking away. The multitudes are confused about who he is and whether or not to follow him. And yet, even if they were following him, he invested most in the ones who were closest to him. And if small group is that community of people around our life that we're learning to do faith with, that we're learning to pursue after Jesus with, then the closer we can get them to us is going to only lead to that more effective pursuit of Jesus together. And so we don't, there is always that balance of like investing all of my time in like one relationship, but understanding up until that level of saying like they would say they're doing life with me. That's sort of like maybe the litmus test there, but up until that point, we just want to keep pushing into that relationship and growing deeper in that friendship with each other.
I think that's really good. I think our default so often is to invite, thinking like that is pursuit, but we just, like Jesus came to us, we need to go to them, constantly go to them. And I think it just takes a while. I think that's part of discipleship. It takes longer than we expect it should.
And it's a question of who's taking the risk. And I think it's easy for us to want for the other person to take the risk to come into our group instead of saying, I'm going to be the hands and feet of Jesus, which meant he left heaven. He left the presence of the Father. He left where he was comfortable and safe, and he took the risk with real cost, but was willing to do that for the sake of the love of God in our world.
Come on. Oh, that was weak.